and this, I still think is a possibility. I don't know where other people sit on this or whatever. I mean, look, he was a part of Roy Williams' staff this past year. I don't think that's a guarantee that everybody that was on the staff is going to be back next year. I think there may be some rearranging of the staff. There may be some other guys that are brought in from the outside, because it seems like there are some pretty big name guys that are willing to join him on the bench and would be happy to join him on the bench. So I think that's the other big thing, is that you felt like with this hire, you were getting a guy that was going to be able to bring in other former Tar Heels, mainly just other people that would be able to help him have success. It almost feels like, and I mean, I know he's younger, but it almost feels similar to Matt Brown when he came into the football program, in that he's going to be able to get a good staff around him because people are going to want to coach under him.
Well, I think he carries himself a certain way. He brings a certain energy that I think Carolina needs in their new leader. You could look at Roy Williams the last couple of years and you can just tell that same fire and same emotion was missing. And for whatever reason it was just something that it was noticeable, because for the first 10 years we watched the team play, he was throwing sport coats, getting down in a stance, begging for a defensive stop, whatever. That kind of has seemed to go away. And I do think it had a negative impact on the team when you don't have that guy giving that kind of emotion. When you talk about Hubert Davis, he was, as much as I wanted Wes Miller to get this job, you weren't going to find a guy that loves Carolina more than he does. And I've always said, since it happened, when you go back to the 2016 National Championship game, and of course we lose on a buzzer beater, the photo that someone got of him in the locker room, hands in his face, completely distraught that they didn't win the national championship. He didn't want to win the national championship for himself. He didn't win one as a player. He wasn't trying to win one for a coach. He was wanting to win one for those kids. And you see all the outpouring success that's coming on social media. A lot of it is former players that are just came through the program within the last 3 to 5 years. He was a mentor to a lot of guys. Kenny Williams, for instance, is a guy that speaks really highly of him. Brandon Robinson, another guy. They've credited Hubert Davis for their success both as players on the court and as people off the court. And so I think that's something that you're getting a little bit of a Roy Williams in him, in that this is his alma mater. He understands what it means to win here. He understands the pressure that's underneath him to win here. But I think he welcomes that, and he is excited for the challenge. This is going to be – it's just going to be a really interesting time, because I think he's set up for success. I think the move to make him the head coach pretty much keeps your roster as of right now intact for next season, which is really big, because you'd already lost 4 dudes due to either the transfer portal or leaving, going off to the NBA. You've only got 2 players committed right now in your class, but as of this very moment, you would imagine DeMarco Dunn and Dontrez Styles to stay committed, because Hubert Davis was heavily involved in their recruitment. And let's not make no mistake.
Styles has already confirmed that he is facing this. I would assume that Dunn probably will as well. He just hasn't said anything yet. Because he's a guard. My guess, and I don't know just off the top of my head, my guess would be Hubert was the lead recruiter for him. I would be shocked if he wasn't. So, yeah, and you wrote an article on it, and a lot of people brought it up right after the hire was made. Some of the people that are more invested in recruiting than anything else. This also probably keeps them in the running, if they're wanting to be, for Jonas to do, because they have a relationship with him. If it would have been Wes Miller, if it would have been any of the outside guys, you more than likely would have had to reestablish a relationship with them from scratch, which would be extremely tough. Now you're keeping yourself probably in pretty good standing with him. So if you want him, you're still going to have a shot at him.
Yeah, and I mean, and make no mistake, Bubba Cunningham made that known in his media availability last Thursday that getting a new head coach was important quickly because of recruiting, because of the transfer portal. To keep Carolina competitive for next season, this had to be done sooner rather than later. I'm of the opinion that when you're losing a guy like Roy Williams as your head coach, your program is going to go through a transition period where you're probably not going to be as successful right off the bat. But Hubert Davis gives you the opportunity to still win games at a high level, to still compete for the ACC in the short term, and then, of course, hopefully adjusting into the long term. But, I think you brought up a really great point, and that's the staff. And I think as much as and for the longest time, I believed Carolina had the best coaching staff in college basketball. You could argue that maybe it was Kansas or Kentucky or some other school, but you look at the guys that Roy Williams had on his staff in Chapel Hill, it was kind of hard to argue their success. There's going to be some questions about Steve Robinson. He is 63 years old, a lifelong friend of Roy Williams. Maybe he does decide to hang it up. I think with this decision to bring Hubert Davis in, it is more likely that he does step away. I thought if Wes Miller was the head coach, maybe Wes Miller said that, hey, look, man, I could really use your guidance and your knowledge for these first couple years. Can you stick around? But, of course, we'll wait and see what Steve Robinson decides to do. No matter what he'll do, he'll be coaching his buns off or retiring his buns off one way or another.
We are disappointed that we do not have a chance to have coaching your buns off with Steve Robinson as the name of our podcast. Yeah. We are
but there's also been some other things I have said for the last 2 months or so. I think C.B. McGrath was going to be back on this staff one way or another. Him and Hubert Davis have a relationship. Carolina's development did not proceed the way it usually does after he departed for that head coaching job in UNCW. And to me, that can't be coincidental. He's a really good coach. He is, he's like a coordinator in football. He's an assistant coach. He's not a head coach. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that label. Another part.
If Steve Robinson leaves, am I wrong in thinking that CB has a really good chance to be Hubert's lead assistant? I would kind of be stunned if he's not.
It would either be him or a guy that interviewed for the job in King Rice. I understand King Rice is a head coach at Monmouth, but let's be quite frank, that hasn't gotten him anywhere since. Maybe and look, after they came to the Smith Center, and I think it was 2016, and Carolina beat them by 45, that man entered that press conference in tears because he was just thankful for the opportunity to come back to a place that he loved. Think about what he could add to this staff for Hubert Davis. He's got head coaching experience, albeit at a mid-major, but he has experience making in-game adjustments with lesser talent, knowing how to be more tactical with his coaching, finding ways to get to build a program and make the program as good as it can be. Carolina, in a lot of ways, under Roy Williams, did some things that is kind of outdated, that's kind of more stagnant. You could bring in a guy that has to do it a little bit differently, and maybe you get some different results. And also, for King Rice, there's a better opportunity for you to get a better job as the assistant head coach at North Carolina than being the head coach at Monmouth. And he has a relationship with Hubert Davis from their playing days back in the mid-'80s, so that could very well be a part of this discussion as well. But I do think the staff and who he puts around him is going to be a big part of how successful he is early on. I don't doubt that he can make in-game adjustments and he can put together a practice plan. That's why coaching the JV squad was a great experience for him, because that's where you got to learn how to do certain things. But nonetheless, there is going to be a growing time for him. He needs guys around him to help him develop as a coach, as he develops as a coach himself. So that'll be one of the things that we're going to monitor.
Quick thing there. You mentioned about bringing in King Rice, which I like. I think that having, a guy like him who was, was coached by Dean Smith, probably has a lot of coaching elements that Dean Smith had. And you combine that with guys that we expect to probably stay on the staff, and Sean May, who's already on one, in one of the chairs on the bench, and Kendall Marshall, who we think could be elevated there, that were coached by Roy Williams, so they're going to have a lot of Roy in them. Hubert's kind of going to be a mix, as we said. I think that could be a good move. One other guy, do you think that Wes Miller, if he was approached, do you think that he would be interested in taking an assistant job, or does it seem like – because I feel like with King, I feel like he would be maybe a little more open to that. I feel like Wes Miller wants to be a head coach.
Yes.
And maybe I'm wrong about that, but what do you think?
I think you can't do that for the sanity of Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis understands that he beat him out for the job. If you put him on your coaching staff or someone brings that idea up, you're pretty much the mindset is that, well, if you don't win the games that you need to win, we'll just promote this guy to head coaching to be the head coach. I don't think that's good for team morale. I think Wes Miller needs to take this experience and go somewhere else. And if the job reopens again later down the line, he'll probably be the top candidate from the in-family choices to become the head coach. And I think that guy wants to be a head coach. I don't think he wants to be an assistant coach, even if it is at his alma mater. He's got big time coaching written all over him. He's going to be a superstar in this profession, whether it's in Chapel Hill, hopefully 10 to 15 years down the line, or somewhere else. He's going to make a difference in college basketball at some point in the near future. So anything else we need to touch on just from this initial news of Hubert Davis becoming the head coach of the Tar Heels?
I mean, not much else. I know, one of the reservations that I had about him was the fact that the JV team hadn't been super successful over the last couple of years. I think I may have put a little bit too much stock into that originally when I was looking at that, because I think one of the things that I kind of let go, and it was my fault on this, was the fact that Carolina is one of the few Division I programs that still has a JV team. So a lot of these other colleges that are playing, those are their best players on campus. For Carolina, it's the B team. So I think that it was a good chance, a good experience for him. It got him, a taste of what it's like to go into, when it comes to being a coach. But the main thing that I'll say at the end here is that, look, this is one of those guys where I feel like there were other candidates that you could have been angry to the point where you didn't really want to give them a chance. Ultimately, you would have if you were a Tar fan, but you would have been angry with the hire. Like for me, if that would have been Jay Wright, I would not have liked that hire at all. And it's not that Jay Wright isn't a good head coach. It's just personally, I would not want him as the head coach after what happened in 2016. Call that selfish. That was just me. Hubert Davis is a guy that, because he went to Carolina, and as we mentioned, not only went to Carolina, this guy grew up in the Tar Heel lifestyle and has lived that for 50 years so far. I think that you're going to be at least willing to give him a chance. Whether it's going to work out or not, there's no telling. There's nothing that's guaranteed with this hire. But the other thing is look, there was nobody that was a guaranteed success with the hire. Even if you brought in a guy like Mark Hughes or, a guy that had even been rumored today, and Chris Holtman, there's no guarantee that they would be successful here because they would have to reestablish themselves. And I think that's the big thing is that Hubert Davis doesn't have to do that. Everybody around Tar Heel basketball knows who Hubert Davis is, and I think everybody around Tar Heel basketball is going to at least be willing to give Hubert Davis a chance to succeed, and that's what you should be willing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I am 100% on board with this man leading a program that I have devoted my life to since the sixth grade. Even though he wasn't my first choice to be the head coach, he will have my unwilling, undying support until he retires or something, whenever the day comes he's no longer the head coach of Carolina basketball, because he